Hey everyone out there in the YouTube world, the time has come for me to finally do my in-depth Minelab E-Trac versus the Minelab CTX3030 comparison. I've been promising this video for quite a while, but I've been keeping quite busy, and it's super hot this week. It's been in the upper 80s and now even into the lower 90s, and it's been sunny. And land hunting is becoming virtually impossible at the moment. It hasn't rained here in about 2 weeks, and you can't hunt a private property without killing somebody's lawn at this point. So really only going to hunt a spot when it's a little bit cooler, and if it's a place that obviously doesn't really matter that much. But most of the places I hunt, I can't go around killing grass and all that stuff, and it's miserable to hunt when it's 90 plus degrees. So taking the slower time here of the hunting season to do more videos like this, and of course I'll be doing some wood chip hunting and some playgrounds, and I will be doing some land hunts, don't get me wrong, but I'm just hoping we get some rain here so I can do them a little more frequently. But that's beside the point. Let's get into the comparison video here. Now, before I get into it, this comparison video is for people that, one, either have the E-Trac and are thinking about upgrading to the CTX, or to those who don't have either of the machines but know that, you know, there's a lot of people that upload videos of these machines on YouTube and they find amazing things. You know, that sort of person. Somebody looking to buy one of these machines, or somebody looking to possibly upgrade from the E-Trac. This is not for somebody who has one or both machines that is looking for me to give them new settings, show them tips and tricks on how to improve the machine and set it up for certain ground conditions and certain hunts. This is a comparison video. I'm not going to get into the actual function of them, like turning them on and showing you how I do my settings and that sort of thing. So I just don't want you to get the wrong impression before you sit through 10 minutes of this, because it's about to get all nerdy and analytical up in here. So I have a list here that I'm going to go through, and I'm just going to go ahead and start off. First, we're going to start with the design of the machine. So I'm going to do a comparison on the design. So first off, we're going to talk about the setup of the machine, like right when you get out of the box, putting it together. I will say that the E-Trac is easier to put together. For some reason, I don't know if it was just me, but I found it very confusing to get the CTX set up, especially getting the cord through the shaft. The first time I had to try to figure out how to do that and put all the parts together and line the shafts up took me a long time, and a few times to even get used to it. So the E-Trac, in my opinion, is easier to put together. That being said, one of the problems that I have with the E-Trac, I wouldn't call it a problem, but I guess it could be better, is the shaft on the E-Trac. On the CTX, the shaft is a lot more durable. You are not gonna break the shaft or anything. When you swing this, the machine is solid. Now on the E-Trac, I'm 5'11", so when I pull this shaft up, well, I'm not gonna be able to do it right now with one hand, but when I pull the shaft up, I almost want it the whole way to the top so that I'm not bending over. But when you have the E-Trac shaft almost up to as high as it can go, or even up to 2 inches below that, when you're swinging it, you're going to get a tiny little bit of a shake. So if I want to set the E-Trac so that it's like perfectly stable, I actually have to shorten the shaft a little bit too much, and then I find myself hunching over. Now, it hasn't been a problem in the long run. Obviously, it's the machine I've used the most. All I'm saying is the CTX has a better shaft than the E-Trac. I definitely give it to the CTX on that one. I do wish for the price of the E-Trac that the shaft was just a little more sturdy. Okay, so the next thing on the list here is the arm cuff. Now this is probably the only feature on both machines that I can say comfortably that for the dollar value and performance of these machines that Minelab, in my opinion, missed the boat on both of the arm cuffs. We'll start with the E-Trac. You can see how I cut off a little sleeve of a, like a little jacket, and that's because the way this cuff is, there's no padding at all on it, and because your arm does fit kind of snug in there, after a long hunt, not like on short hunts, but if you're doing like an all-day hunt or a good 5-hour plus hunt, this part of my right below where my elbow bends, about right there, gets extremely tight. That's just I would say it's just because of the lack of padding. It rubs a lot, and you get a little sore spot. So that's just a little redneck fix I had on there. You can upgrade the cuff on your E-Trac, which is something I may do. But other than that, your arm stays in the E-Trac very secure. This little Velcro band is actually perfect if you want to strap your arm in a little bit tighter. I tend to just leave it extremely loose. That way, if I drop it, you still catch it on your arm so you don't bust your machine, but at the same time you can slide your arm in and out for when you're in a place where you want to recover a lot of targets quickly. Now on the CTX, it's a little softer as far as padding goes, but the Velcro strap that they use that comes with the machine is overkill. It's very large and it's extremely abrasive. So if you're hunting somewhere where you're sliding your arm in and out all the time, especially when you're breaking in the machine, probably the first dozen or so hunts I used with this, from sliding my arm in and out all the time, it gets really irritated and red because that Velcro rubs on your arm. So I found that the CTX, just with what it comes with, without altering it any, I didn't care for it for as far as sliding your arm in and out. I found the E-Trac better for that. So the arm cuffs are something that I can't say either machine wins. The only thing I would mention that I can't mention about the E-Trac is the CTX. The CTX is waterproof and the E-Trac is not, plain and simple. The coils are obviously submersible on both machines, but you cannot submerge the box, the control box in the E-Trac, whereas the CTX you can submerge, I can't remember how deep underwater, but it's probably like up to 10 feet or something like that. So that's just one thing that obviously is the CTX is a more expensive machine. It has that feature that it's waterproof. You can get rain covers for the E-Trac. Most sets, most kits when you buy the E-Trac come with a rain cover, so it's really not much of an issue unless it's an absolute downpour outside. I've hunted with the E-Trac in light rain since I've had the machine 3 years ago. Never had a problem. Obviously you just don't want to dunk it in water, which I've never done. Now, the weight difference. I looked online real quick, so I hope I have the right specs on this. I believe this is without the battery packs, without any added accessories. The Minelab, the E-Trac weighs 3.5 pounds, and the CTX, believe it or not, is a whopping 5.2 pounds. And I can tell you, for a metal detector, 5.2 pounds is heavy. I know when the CTX came out, they tried to balance the machine better, which seemingly they did. Like if you pick up an E-Trac and then you pick up a CTX, it feels like the CTX is actually about the same weight because more weight is distributed into the back of the machine, like the battery pack and everything here, versus the E-Trac may be a little more bottom heavy. And at first when I started using the CTX, I thought it was a lot better as far as balance goes, but after I used them both for a long time, I was kind of unsure. I didn't think it helped as much as it was supposed to. I did find, I'm not sure if it's just a coincidence, but just for me, when I use the CTX on all-day hunts, I get a little bit more of a sore lower back. And also, the grips on these, and I think it's how the weight's balanced, my the tendons in my wrist and in my forearm seem to get more fatigued when I do an all-day hunt with the CTX than when I do with the E-Trac. So personally, after using the CTX straight for about a month and a half, I actually prefer the E-Trac. And I'm not sure why in the design they didn't decide to put the foam grip on the CTX. Probably because it's just a cheap fix and it was just to add, some added comfort. But I actually, as far as the balance goes, in the weight, I prefer the E-Trac better. Let's see. One other thing that I have to also give to the E-Trac is the stand for in the field. Now, mine's a little bit bent because my machine's been through the lot over the 3 years I've had it. But this little stand here on the E-Trac is nice and wide, and when you set your machine down on it in the field, whether you're in tall grass or on a little bit of a slope, it's hard to knock your machine over sort of like this. Like I even have to add quite a bit of force just to kind of pull it over with my arm. The CTX on the other hand, I'm just going to take a couple fingers and you can just kind of it's kind of sliding on my hardwood here, but the stand on the CTX is not as wide and I don't like it. So that's just my thing. I found that like when I'm on a hill or I'm in tall grass, I'm constantly knocking the CTX over, where I never had that problem with the E-Trac. So I'm giving that one to the E-Trac. Now, one that goes blatantly to the CTX is the battery life. On the E-Trac, generally one battery pack, which you just slide in here. If I can get it out there. One of these the rechargeable battery packs for the E-Trac, when they're brand new, will last about one all-day hunt. So I don't know, we'll just say about 10 hours or so. With the CTX, this battery pack, I haven't hunted as much with it, and I try to recharge it after 1 or 2 hunts, so I didn't get a exact hours on it or anything, but you can go 2 all-day hunts and sometimes even 3 all-day hunts with the CTX without even charging the battery. So there's really no comparison. The CTX has a much longer battery life, hands down, and because of that, and I always wanted a backup, that's one thing I recommend. If you do buy an E-Trac, buy a spare rechargeable battery pack with it. That's what I did as soon as I bought mine, and that's a good decision. One of the other things as far as that goes is we're going to talk about the screen design in the menus. And this one I'm giving to the E-Trac, hands down. It's really simple. Even if you've never used a Minelab machine, the menus are simple to figure out. You have the basic power button on the top left. On the top right, it's your backlight button. If it's dark, you want to put the backlight on so you can see the screen better. These arrows here, you don't use much. So pretty much, other than the power button, all your main buttons are sectioned off at the bottom. You have your arrows on the far left, and then you have your menu and pinpoint button, and then you have some various other buttons here like the noise cancel and things like that. Extremely easy to use and navigate. Now on the CTX, even though I had used an E-Trac for almost 2 full years before I even started using the CTX, I almost had to completely relearn everything on this machine, because when you first try to learn this machine, even if you've had experience with the E-Trac, the menus, in my opinion, are very confusing. Your keypad, the down right, the up, down, left, and right kind of go in a circle in the middle here with a menu button in the middle, and then it has some of your buttons on the left side and the right side. And it's not just the setup of the keypad that I find confusing. Navigating the menu with the machine on, you obviously through the keypad, the way the menus are set up, I just simply don't like it. Some people may disagree with me on that, but I found the E-Trac a much simpler machine. Now I do have to say the CTX does have more features than the E-Trac does, so it's going to have more menu options, but I think that they could have designed it in a little more user-friendly fashion. So that's my thing for that. Now that's just sort of, you know, the actual, that's just the sort of the shell of the machine, giving you an idea of how they work. But now I'm going to get into the function of them a little bit more, comparing the functionality of the machines. First of all, we're going to talk about the learning curve. Now, if you've previously used an E-Trac, the learning curve moving up to the CTX isn't horrible. It does take some time because there's a lot of differences on it. But let me put it this way. If you've never used a Minelab machine before and you buy an E-Trac, which is what I did. I started with the E-Trac as my first Minelab machine. It is extremely to use straight out of the box without messing with any of the settings. I'm sort of a learn-as-you-go person. I won't read the manual until I go out and test it a little bit first and start to figure out if, realize I need to learn some things. So I didn't really even change the factory settings other than like the volume and things like that on my E-Trac until probably a month after I had it. Even straight out of the box without messing any of the settings, messing with them, it's easy to use, and you're going to find, coins. I just left the basic stock coin program on the E-Trac for quite a while after I bought it, and I did great with it. So if you've never owned a Minelab and you go right to a CTX3030, I think it's going to be really confusing for you. That's just my belief, because it's a little bit more technical of a machine. The menus are more confusing, and it just has a little bit more of a learning curve. So one thing I can say for certain is, if you've never owned a Minelab before, don't worry about getting a CTX. You can always upgrade. The Minelabs hold their value fairly well. Just buy an E-Trac, and then after you use the E-Trac for maybe half a year or something, then maybe you can consider going up to a CTX. But that's my opinion. I will say the stability of the machine as far as chattering and giving consistent tones, the CTX is a little bit better. It is a little bit more stable of a machine. They both obviously have the noise cancel option, but if you're around other people with metal detectors that are giving off interference, if you're around specific power lines or any electrical interference, the CTX does a better job of taking that out. Sometimes the E-Trac can be a little shaky when it comes to that, and you'll get a lot of like do-do-do-do-do-do-do. And when you have a lot of that, it can kind of mask the high tones, so unless you're swinging real slow, it can cause you to miss a lot of good targets that you're listening for. So that's one thing I definitely give to the CTX. It's a lot more quiet of a machine around interference, which helps you find more desirable targets. But when it comes to E-Trac, it's not a problem for me. I'm just saying that the CTX is better. Let's see. Now, one thing a lot of people talk about is the tone register. They're both multi-tone machines, but without changing any of the settings, just using them right out of the box, I find that the E-Trac is it's a lot easier to distinguish silver from copper, whereas the CTX, sometimes the high tones aren't as distinct. Now you can go in and change the tone register on both machines, but they are different. The E-Trac really slams the silver signals hard and gives you a really distinct pitch, and I also find it gives a really distinct rich tone on solid low conductive targets, sort of like nickels, anything in the nickel range of 12 or 13 conductive, and then the high tones. And then the E-Trac doesn't seem, just because of the difference in the tones, I'm not saying it doesn't hit the targets, it hits all targets, but the tones that are in the high pull tab range up and through the mid tones, and then your really low tones below a nickel, like your tiny gold rings and your foil, the E-Trac doesn't sound, let's say it doesn't sound as enticing as it makes it sound like targets you would want to dig. And that's all just about what your tones you're getting used to. You know, some machines sound the same on every target. They give off a really loud, concise signal. So I put it this way, some machines, just because they're at a lower technological level, they trick you into digging more signals, which is good sometimes. The CTX doesn't seem it hits as concise on the high tones like the silver when you're first learning it. Now, once you do use the CTX for a while, after a couple months, I realized I got really good at determining silver from copper, but it seems like it takes a little bit longer to learn the tones on the CTX. And with the, let's see, what was I talking about there? With the mid-tones on the CTX and those lower conductive targets that are pretty much in between a nickel and like a penny tone, as I was saying, they sound a little bit weaker on the E-Trac. The CTX seems to hit those targets really hard and give them a more strong, appealing signal. When I first took the CTX out to a park, the first time I used it, I couldn't believe how solid of a signal it was giving on like zinc targets, like zinc pennies and things like that. And I have read that people call them Indian head penny magnets, which I would believe with. It hits smaller targets that don't sound as good on the E-Trac, or slightly lower conductive targets like Indian heads and things like that. It hits them better, especially when they're deeper. I found that the CTX finds those lower conductive targets like Indian heads a lot easier than the E-Trac does. With the E-Trac, you have to go slower and really work for them. So that's something I sort of noticed. So I just figured I'd throw that out there. Now, to the contrary, this is something I've never heard anyone really discuss, but it's something that I think is something to think about. Whether anybody believes me or not, the E-Trac does an extremely good job on distinguishing the difference between silver and then like deformed iron, like bent nails and things like that. Honestly, I've had my E-Trac 3 years, and I'm almost 100% positive I've dug less than 100 nails in my entire career with the E-Trac. And some people might say, oh, well, if you're not digging that many nails, you're missing a ton of good targets. There's several reasons that can be untrue. Number one is because I use the target probe for the E-Trac. And if there's even any signal that's non-iron in the hole, it'll at least peep a little bit. Even if it's a terrible signal or a really faint signal, it'll at least peep a little bit in the hole. Whereas if it's, iron and only iron, it will completely null out. So I'm not saying it's to the benefit of the E-Trac because of that. That's specifically before the probe, which I'm going to talk about soon. The CTX, since it is a little bit better of a machine as far as stability, possibly even a tiny bit better on depth, it actually hits nails harder because it wants to pick up more signals, because I personally believe it's slightly a more powerful machine, which has its pros and cons. If you want to go to a pounded out spot and you want to find just maybe 1 or 2 good targets all day, the CTX may be a better option for you than the E-Trac, just because it can sniff out a few more things than the E-Trac, which is what I've found, especially on super deep targets that the E-Trac might not want to pick up. The CTX still might give a little something on it. But what the CTX does that I don't like is when you hit a nail with the E-Trac, at first it might peep, but once you hone in and check the signal, it pretty consistently nulls it completely out and discriminates it out. And you may hear a peep from time to time, but you check at a couple different angles and you're pretty much certain it's iron. And when you're learning, you dig them all anyway, just for, for an education. But with the CTX, it does a little more of what I'm going to call the like a null peep. It makes the iron sound a little more enticing because it, even though it discriminates it out, it wants to give a little bit more of a high tone mixed in with the iron. So I found that the CTX peeps a little bit more on iron. So I dug more nails with the CTX3030 than I did with the E-Trac. So I just figured I'd say that as well. Now, we're going to go, that's all I wanted to really cover for the performance. I do think the CTX has a very slight edge, but whether that difference justifies you buying one over the E-Trac is up for you to decide. And I'll tell you my opinion here in a second. We're going to go to the probe, because that is, in, we'll say aftermarket coils, aftermarket accessories. Pretty much you can get really, really good coils for either the E-Trac or the CTX. They both have really big coils out there. The 17-inch coil for the CTX is an absolute beast and an amazing coil. I've used it a lot myself, and I've loved the 17-inch coil. I just have the stock coils in both of them now. So there's good aftermarket coils, small ones and large ones for both machines. Now, the main difference between the E-Trac and the CTX is if I'm going on aftermarket parts. This probe here on the E-Trac is one of the main reasons I use the E-Trac, because with this probe you can cut your target recovery time down to less than half. And I've hunted with a lot of different people, and I've done a lot of solo hunts where I've just pounded and pounded the targets, and I may not, even if I'm missing a few targets in really deep areas with the stock coil on the E-Trac, this is the machine I am always going to use in an area where there are a lot of targets, because the E-Trac, with the E-Trac itself, and for a lot of the reasons I explained earlier, plus adding this target probe, is in my opinion one of the most lethal combinations out there in the detecting world. As far as locating targets, the separation of the E-Trac, and the addition of the target probe for finding your target, it's easily 2 times as quick, if not more, than using a traditional pinpointer. I might even say up to 3 times in some cases. It just depends on how good you are with a standard pinpointer. I've done 4 or 4.5 hour hunts in parks that were littered with coins, and I've dug over 240 coins in under 5 hours. With a traditional probe, like you would have to get with the CTX, because unfortunately they don't make an aftermarket probe for it, there's no way I could do that in 4 hours. Dig 240 coins. It's just impossible. So that doesn't have anything to do with the machines themselves, but just the fact that you can buy that probe for the E-Trac just makes it all the more appealing. And just for that reason alone is one of the reasons I would choose the E-Trac over the CTX. And I did find that when you're first learning the machines, I think it takes a little bit longer to adapt to the size of your targets with the CTX. I think that may have to do with the tone register. I'm not sure, but I found when you're first learning the machines, I found it's easier to test the size of the target with the E-Trac than it is with the CTX. So overall, I would say, first of all, I would say without a shadow of a doubt, if you have never owned a Minelab machine and you are looking at purchasing one of these for your first machine, buy the E-Trac. If you own an E-Trac and you're thinking about upgrading to the CTX, just keep in mind whether or not you use the probe, because that's a big difference. If you don't use the probe on the E-Trac and you want to upgrade, I would say do it, because if you're not going to use the probe anyway, the CTX does have some advantages. So I would say go ahead and do it, but you just have to justify whether that makes sense or not, because the E-Trac is $1549 and the E-Trac is $24.99. So the CTX is another $950. So that's a rundown. I will say, once I've pounded a spot to death with the E-Trac, especially a place that has deeper targets, you can clear out a place with shallow targets with the E-Trac. But if you're hunting a place and there's a lot of deep targets that you can't even get them all with your stock coil, I like to go over, once I'm done with the E-Trac, almost clearing it out the best I can, I like going over it with the CTX, and especially with the bigger coils, because it will sniff out some targets that are way down there, and in heavier, more mineralized ground. The CTX does really well too, as far as getting those really deep targets. So there are some advantages to the CTX for sure, and I do like it as a backup machine. It is a really solid machine. I just, I live in Tennessee. There's a lot of thick clay down here, and most of the places I hunt, I don't need the extra firepower of the CTX. I would rather have the quicker recovery time. So, I mean, your hunting conditions may be different. If you're up north, there may be a few more advantages where there's dark, rich, soft soil. There may be more advantages for you with the CTX than there is with the E-Trac. But that's my review. I hope that really helped you guys understand some of the differences between the machines. And now that I'm looking, I did forget to mention one more thing about the design, and you can tell that just from looking at them. Look how high the screen is on the CTX, and it doesn't fold, whereas the E-Trac, it's sort of built into the shaft basically. The CTX is a pain in the butt to store when you're throwing it in your trunk, the back of your car, when you're putting it in a closet. It's just clunky because it's so high and you can't fold that down. So unless you take it apart and put it in a box, the E-Trac is a lot easier to store and to cart around with you. So with that, I'm going to leave you with you guys to think about. I plan on testing and using a lot more machines in the field because, I just love the hobby of metal detecting, and I want to really branch out and try a lot new different machines. And who knows, someday maybe come back to the ones I've sold and things like that. But right now, if anyone is interested in purchasing my CTX, I would sell it right now. I've used it on probably between 24 and maybe 30 hunts. For the last 2 years, I probably only used it, or actually, it has about 1.5 years left on warranty. I purchased it in the fall of 2013. Only used it maybe 10 times up until the last couple months when my E-Trac was in the shop, and then I took it on like 20 hunts and some long ones too. So it probably has, right around between 24 and 30 hunts on it. Just, a little bit of cosmetic wear. I'm willing to sell it for $2,000 if anybody's interested in picking it up. And brand new they sell for $24.99. And I'll throw a Kellyco razor edge Gator digger in with it. I don't have it in front of me right now, but it's one of the shovels I used for like my first 1.5 years, 2 years of detecting. So it's still a good shovel. All you'd have to do is sharpen it up and you're ready to go. But I'm testing some other gear, and I'm going to be getting some other shovels and things like that. And I have 2 of the Kellyco diggers, which are really solid hand tools. So if anybody wants that, the CTX, I'll sell it for $2,000 and I'll throw in a shovel. As for the E-Trac, you're out of luck. I won't sell you one. So thanks guys for watching. Hope this video helped. Take care, and I hope you're out there finding treasure.